vibes.
Thank you for tuning in to the Push It Forward Podcast Network. I'm your humbled executive producer, Harut, and this is the Cosmic Convos podcast. On Cosmic Convos, Brother Ra and myself gets into how to utilize sidereal astrology as a powerful organizing tool for your life. Whether you're talking about starting a family, getting married, raising children, starting a business, going into a new career, what career you need to choose, and a whole host of other topics relevant to everyone's life. All right. Make sure you check us out on Patreon, where we release exclusive content to all of our patrons, and you get the opportunity to directly interact with us and ask questions and even help us determine the shows that we cover on our weekly podcast. All right. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy.
You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation, the place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You are now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humble host, Harut, and I got my good brother here, Brother Ra. How you doing?
Brother, keeping my eyes to the sky and ears to the street. How about yourself, King?
Hey, man, I'm on the same page, my brother, man. We're on the same page, man. Like I'm trying to see the sky like you see the sky, my brother.
Well, brother, combining with how you hear the streets, I think we're going to be all right, brother.
Indeed. But before we get rolling, I want to remind you all, make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel, and make sure that you hit that notification bell so you can know when we drop a new content or whatnot. And as usual, this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group, Calapusha Astrology, and our good people on Patreon. Big up to y'all. And whatnot. If you want to connect with us on other social media platforms and everything like that, you can follow us on Instagram at Cosmic Convo at Instagram. That's CosmicConvo. From there, you can get to my personal Instagram page, Push It Forward's Instagram page or whatnot. And speaking of that, make sure you go subscribe to the First We Build podcast channel or whatnot, the other channel on there. And Ninth Lord Films or whatnot. You can find both of those channels in a section called Content Family when you visit this channel and stuff. Subscribe to all of those. And to the other point, Brother Ra, how can the people get a hold of you?
You can hit me up via IG or FB, Facebook at Shechem Ra, or you can also hit me up on Facebook via Calapusha Astrology. You can also visit my website at calapushastrology.com, and you can find me on Twitter via Calapusha Astrology. And if you need to email me, meaning get directly to me, you can email me at calapushastrology@gmail.com.
Indeed. Definitely make sure y'all do that. All right, so we are here at episode 23 of season 5 or whatnot. We're almost nearing the end or whatnot. We last episode we continued with our series, going over the element signs. We did the fire, we did water last time or whatnot. So that seems like that's got a pretty good response. Brother Rob, what's the feedback you've been getting on those episodes?
Everybody love to break down, love the way it correlates and how to really unpack the connections between what we know as siderealists to have the sky pinned to the nakshatras, whereas some
Right.
some tropical Vedic say that the sky is not pinned to the nakshatras. Well, we know in classical text that's definitely not true. So the way we kind of unravel them from a sidereal point of view definitely got a good response, good review, and makes perfect sense according to the ancients. So I'm very proud of that particular episode.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. And it kind of solves the I guess the age old problem where you know astrologers run into this you know this debate with the astronomy community in regards to the constellations not being exactly 30 degrees, taking up 30 degrees in the sky and different things like
Mm-hmm.
that. When you look at it from the nakshatra system, it kind of accounts for that. What you think about that?
Yeah, it just undergirds the differences. It
Right.
supports those kind of variables that we have because the signs are not equidistant according to the constellational backdrop.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes sense when you have, the mansions of the moon tied to the sky, which the lunar calendar actually predates the solar calendar. But when you match those star points up, stars don't move, right?
Right.
And well, they do, but they move so slowly
So
it's
slow. Yeah.
imperceptible. Yeah, over time. So that's why they're called fixed stars. And
Right.
so those fixed stars help us fixate, right, certain points in the sky that gives us, you know, events and effects. And it just works perfectly. I mean, you can't really when something works like a machine, you don't try to go fix what's not broken, is the old adage.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I love it, right? The nakshatra system to me, right, is really what sets it apart from. And there's other systems that have the lunar mansions, but not quite like the nakshatra system in the as far as the additional substratum and the deities and the things like that. It's just it works perfectly. So yeah, you can argue it all you want, but when you know a machine works, you don't go and try to rearrange it.
Right. Right. Indeed. Indeed. And to that point, you know, talking about the power of sidereal astrology, we got some interesting things going on right now globally. Some things that we've already talked about a little bit during this season, and some of those things are starting to come into fruition. And in particular, we're talking about some issues between China and the U.S. and Taiwan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
we've actually had a couple episodes where we're talking about, we have the China episode that we did. Was it maybe the second episode of the season?
Second
I'll
or
put it
third,
as
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'll put it as an iCard in there, but you definitely want to check that one out. But if you've been paying attention to the news recently, there's some controversy, some things that's been going on with China's behavior out there in regards to Taiwan. And recently we had Nancy Pelosi just went on a visit to Taiwan, and there was a lot of kind of pushback on that. And before we actually get into it, let me play a little clip just to speed you all up if you have not been watching the news, so you can see what's going on here.
All right, Ray Dalio got in this whole idea. The one big worry for him right now, and
Fair
this is
use.
something that happens in these
Yeah.
cycles, is world tensions developing between premier world powers. Again, he cited the friction between ourselves and China. Not so much Russia, by the way, which I found kind of interesting, the Ukrainian war notwithstanding. Harry Kazanis joins us right now, the Rogue States Project president. Harry was among those early on the China threat. And one of the things, Harry, and it's good to have you, that you hear from Mr. Dalio is this idea that, if we're not careful, we could stumble into a war. The tensions are rising to the degree they are.
Hey, Rod, you see what the taglines say under there? U.S. no longer dominant power. Now we've talked about that a few times throughout, throughout the various seasons, and it's interesting just to see that now it's starting to really creep into, the media in regards to them actually saying it, that the U.S. is not in the position that it once was. What do you think about that?
Oh, it's time for things to change on the world scene, and the U.S. has had its stamp on world affairs for quite some time. But the trajectory of China has been amazing in the past 20 years. 20 years ago, there was no conversation about China having any type of military power or military backing. In 20
Right.
years, I mean, you got to consider America's been building their military for the last almost 80 years,
Right.
right, since World War II. So for China to have that kind of just instant success, I mean, and Chinese are very intelligent and they reverse engineer things and they, acquire certain secrets and certain things. I mean, if you take in consideration just the fact alone that China and Russia both have access to hypersonic weapons, and the U.S. is catching up, that kind of makes the statement that the U.S. is no longer that
The
major
hegemon.
influence. Yeah, that it's not a hegemon anymore. I mean, hypersonic missiles are a big deal. It's a big, for the U.S. I'm talking about the U.S. that spends more than every nation in the world combined. And sometimes I wonder, it sometimes can be, the U.S. can use media as a ploy. They may already have had the weapons, right? But from the perspective of the media and the perspective of the world scene, right, the U.S. is catching up to these superpowers. So, financially speaking, economically speaking, educationally speaking, the U.S. is no longer in the forefront. I'm not saying they're in the last position. There's a kind of race of the nations, if you will. But China is definitely, and if they go through what we're about to talk about, it may be that the U.S. definitely becomes another wheel on the spoke instead of the hub. So yeah, it's definitely interesting that that's come up, and I've seen that statement more than once. That's not the first time I saw it. So yeah, it's kind of ironic that we're seeing this post and we've said it previously. You're right.
Right. And it's like the U.S. is still celebrating, or still riding off their World War II victories.
Yeah,
Been
they
kind of
are.
riding that
Yeah,
for quite some time, and now it's like that was old news. that was
yeah.
that was old news, man.
Ain't
What have you done
been
lately?
is where you're going, not where you been. That's for sure. For sure. And
Right.
yeah,
Because
that's
arguably you lost. I mean, you lost Vietnam. You didn't win in Iraq. You lost in Afghanistan technically.
they're happy with blowing the little man out the waters. They just if you've been hearing the news since they're rah on this second in charge that was under Bin Laden.
Yeah, like
That's one dude. It's
who
one little
cares
dude.
about that?
He ain't
You
even,
still
even
talking
doing
about
nothing
that?
anymore, right?
Right.
Right.
You still stuck on that?
And they're rah that in the news, like, oh, look who we did. We didn't harm anybody else, and oh, yeah, I mean, if you spend $1 billion on a missile, you should be able to do that, right? You got drones. If you fill your manpower with drones, you should be able to do something. I hope. But
Yeah,
one little dude, we're gonna see what happens when this whole right spillover what we're about to talk about occurs. Because I tell you, it's gonna be different show than what you think.
indeed, indeed. Let me keep playing this clip real quick.
That any slip up could make this much worse. What do you think?
Well, I disagree with him a little bit in terms of the over-under that you asked him in terms of percentages if we're going to have war with China. I actually think it's more than likely that we will have a war with China.
Really?
I say that, because you have to look at history. I mean, history is filled with all of these different situations where you have a rising power like a China that meets, I hate to say it, a relatively declining power like the United States. And I say that just because if you compare our, power advantages after World War II, I mean, compared to that, we have declined a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the challenge here is that
See, they said
it. They just dropped it in there.
Right. And we didn't watch this clip beforehand. Not not at all.
No.
Just Indeed.
the Chinese understand in the long term that the United States does not want them to dominate the Asia-Pacific region, and that creates tensions. I mean, for example, the Chinese have declared the South China Sea their own sovereign territory, claiming a body of water. So that's a big deal, and that's why I think there is a real possibility of a war.
It doesn't take much, and you're a great student of history, for something, that seems like an aberrant event to trigger something much worse. I mentioned about World War I and the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand and his wife. Who would have figured that would have led to complex, relationships that brought it to a war, the First World War. It's hard to envision whether a trip by Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan, for example, would trigger something like that. But what do you think?
Actually, I could see a very real scenario. I mean, let's say, for example, the Chinese decide that they want to flex their military muscles and they start doing missile tests. Let's suppose they fire some missiles that they want to go off maybe 20 miles off the coast of Taiwan. Let's say, Neil, that accidentally one of the guidance systems of those missiles fails and it lands in downtown Taipei, or just hits Taiwan by accident. Those are very real possibilities that could trigger a war.
Wow.
I mean, Taiwan responds back.
Accidentally fall in Taipei.
Oh, did we do that? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Wow.
Since we're at it, let's go on in.
Wow. And I mean, wait. Yeah, it might happen. Like, I mean, that's very reasonable. That's not out.
Wrong. My bad. Yeah, but since we're there, come home. Right, you're coming home.
The United States starts moving forces to back Taiwan. China responds. I mean, this is how wars happen. I mean, it doesn't have to be a blatant
I see exactly what you're talking about, Harry. One of the other things I say, we always assume in this country that China looks at the boycotts and the punishments that have been meted out and sanctions against Russia in light of the Ukraine war, and probably figures they're by the grace of God go I, and we don't want anything to do with that. We depend on the rest of the world, trading with the rest of the world to keep us the economic and military power we are. So they don't want to risk, pushing things over the edge with the United States or any other Western power. But we might be wrongly feeling those assurances, huh?
I'd agree. I mean, if you look at the structure of how China has built their military, and I won't go too geeky on you here, but basically what they've done is they've built it up for a very powerful first strike capability. In other words, if they think things are going to the tipping point and they think that military action is probable, they are going to attack in every domain possible. That means cyber strikes. That means utilizing the missiles they've built to destroy our satellites, the carrier killer missiles that they've been building for the last 30 years to destroy our aircraft carriers in a war. Because they realized, Neil, it would be a bolt from the blue sort of attack to wipe us out in one big blow to basically deter us, so we wouldn't want to move forces, 6,000 to 7,000 miles across the Pacific to attack.
So sort of like the way Japan was thinking when it, attacked Pearl Harbor. We're not going anywhere. This is kind of our moment. We surprise them and strike them. We're on our way. I know it's a little bit of military apples and oranges, but do you think that Chinese leadership is seriously thinking that through, that it would have a chance to defeat the United States?
It would be Pearl Harbor on steroids. And Neil, you're on the right idea here, because the Chinese understand that they're at the tip of their military and economic power. Think of it this way. By 2100, the Chinese population, because it's getting older and because it's not replacing its population, will drop from 1.4 billion people to 570 million. That's a drop of 2/3.
Wow.
The U.S. population, because of immigration and illegal or illegal, we can debate that another time, will actually be a little bit higher. So the Chinese may surpass us for a little while in terms of economic dominance because of demographics, but the United States is right up there behind them. So what I worry about is the Chinese may think that this is their time, and that's scary.
Real quickly, Harry, I love talking to you because you look at the big picture pretty much like Mr. Dalio does. It looks like this was going to start the year to be where we would eclipse the growth of China in terms of the economy. It would be the first time we were going at a faster pace than China, I think, since 1976. Now, with these back-to-back contracting quarters, that doesn't look likely. And the Chinese seem to be in a better economic position than we are. How do you think, forget about how we're digesting that, how they're digesting that?
Well, I think in the short term, they feel the advantage, but I think in the long term, they see those demographic trends. I mean, the one thing, Neil, that has driven the Chinese, economic and military power is having that big population, having lots of children, bringing them out of poverty. And I think for the next 5 or 6 years, you will see the Chinese put a lot of effort into bringing, those hundreds of millions of people out in Western China into the Chinese economic realm.
We're going to tell you why in a minute, too. Watch.
To the cities, but they can't grow their way like that forever. And that's why, as long as the United States doesn't create a massive debt bomb that we can't pay back, which doesn't look very good right now, I think the United States has the advantage in the long term.
I always learn a lot, Harry. Thank you very much. Good seeing you. Have a safe weekend.
Indeed. What do you think about that, Ra?
Yeah, he's exactly right. He's exactly right, because you got to understand the way that and here's the thing. I have to disagree with him when he talks about
for sure.
the economy.
Right.
I disagree with him because if you've been looking at the news, oh my God, they're having their 2008 real estate bubble now, right? They're getting hit. Did you see those people going into those banks, man, and whipping on those little dudes, the bankers? Because the foreclosures, they're having foreclosures, y'all, and they don't even have houses. Right? They're foreclosing on land that's not even has anything built up on it. So their economy is not as strong as it seems. Right, they're having some major issues, and they got it's like Tiananmen Square back in the 80s, right? They're having problems, right, with these tanks trying to, because they block it. YouTube, we're not going to show it because they're not going to let us show it anyway. By the time you get to the news that's relevant, they've kind of done a smear campaign. But I saw it before they got to it. And those tanks are rolling down the street. Like, we sitting, right? Like, if I'm like major street I live by is Colfax. Just imagine, major street you live by, and they got tanks rolling down the street because people are bombarding the banks, right? And they're like, what happened to the money? Where's our land? We bought these, and you have to understand, China builds up, folks. Doesn't build land wise, it builds up. So we're talking about foreclosure. We're talking about foreclosure on apartment complexes, on apartment buildings. We're not talking about foreclosures on these like normal houses that we would have here in the United States. So you have to consider they've destroyed whole apartment buildings, leveled them. I'm talking about 7, 8, 9 at a time, because the growth process is halting. So the economic thing, I don't think they're doing better than. I think they're competing, is what he really should be saying. But the competition is, like he says, is neck and neck. And if the way their country is structured age-wise, right, and they don't have, their reproduction rate is different, right? They have controls over their reproduction rate, whereas in America, it's a little different. And of course, like we saying that we have an influx of foreigners, right, that are moving here still. Even though America is not the land of the free and the home of the brave, as the promised land is promised, you still have people moving here, right? So it's changing. The dynamics are changing, and he's absolutely right. The lines are being blurred as to who's really number one is really what it is, right?
Well,
who's really the top? Who's really the head? Who's the one out front?
Well, but when you look at what's happening with China, the economies, I don't know if that's. I mean, I don't know if it's a real kind of apple to apples comparison. I mean, it's
It's not.
different.
It's very
It's
different.
different. Yeah, different societies and a different kind of goal and objective, right?
Right.
Because to me, when I look at the situation, I'm not so much concerned about the U.S. or I mean China directly attacking the U.S. It's more like the Chinese baiting China into attacking them, or
Right. Like,
baiting China
we're around you. Yeah. Yeah.
to come and put themselves in a situation that then provokes China to start taking action. So it's kind of like a chess game. And also you got
It
to look
is.
at who China is in bed with, right?
Right.
Their
Right.
allies, Russia, Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
Iran,
Pakistan. Hmm.
Pakistan, North Korea.
It's a slippery slope around those woods, man. Because
Right,
then they're talking about America has to really lock arms with India, right? Because India has over 1 billion people too, right? They don't
right.
have the military capacity that China has, but they're still in the backyard, and anybody in your backyard can definitely let the dogs loose, right? So
And
you know what I mean.
I think in India may just try to be neutral because they
I'm getting
if
that
they
feeling. India's like, look, I really don't want to get caught up in this. I'm cool with we're doing good with the gas with Russia, right? And China's an old enemy, but do we really want to go right now? Do we really want to ruffle those feathers? So it's a very precarious situation that these countries find themselves in. But like he did say, and I think we said it before, oops, oh, I'm sorry, that's our rocket, you know. But since it's there, hey, we're gonna come on and we're gonna go get our rocket, right?
and
And
here
by
and
the
here
way, you're coming back home with us, right?
right and see and even if we want to look at it from an economic perspective, that could be a missing piece for China,
It is a missing
Taiwan's
piece.
economy.
It could be. Oh, it's a missing piece.
Right.
Taiwan, shh, that would put them over. That's the thing. That would put them over the edge.
Right.
Do you know this phone, man? You know how long it took so long to get me this dog get this phone? It took me 5 months to get that phone. I
Oh.
ordered it and I had to wait 5 months. It's
which
the
which phone is
microchips.
that?
That's the Samsung Galaxy 22 Ultra.
Okay.
Right? It took me 5 months to get that phone,
Wow.
and then I'm
What the
like why?
heck?
Yeah, the microchips, bro. The microchips. They're on back order. Everything, cars, automobiles, back order. Right? Any type of electrical automobile, back order because of the microchips. So if they get Taiwan, that's a game changer.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
That's a
big time.
that's a death blow. Yeah, that's a death blow. Now China and America has to cooperate, and they know it. China knows this. Taiwan knows it. And it's not like you really can stop China from going in their own backyard and getting Taiwan. I mean, what could you really that little narrow piece of land? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna I mean, by the time you're there, like you said, 5 to 6,000 miles away, do you really want that? Do you really want those problems?
Right.
You know, is it really worth it? Or do you not have to play ball on a whole different level? And if America was smart, what they would do is play the chess game and really co-op. And here's the thing: it's China is a very good position right now worldwide because they got their foot in Africa, and Africa
Right.
is where they get the materials for the microchips. So it's like
Right.
anywhere you go, unless you're in these little narrow straits, China's kind of got the game on lock. But he was right in a first strike because if China goes and let me tell you this, folks, and we know this, China is gonna get Taiwan. Like he said, right? They're gonna get it. It's just a matter of time. They're not
Hmm.
doing all this to saber rattling just to say, hey, we're here. No, they're going to get Taiwan. Bet your bottom dollar. And Taiwan doesn't stand a chance, right? It doesn't. Not much you could really do. They're not militarily even close to having any type of capacity to defend. They're playing war games, but that's just an imminent process to get the president to safety. Once that happens, it's a wrap, man. They're gonna take over like roaches, right?
Right.
It's over, right? Once they're there, they're there, and it's gonna change the world scene, not only with the United States, but with Russia, with India, everywhere that is reliant upon Taiwan. Taiwan will now have to capitulate to the needs and demands and wants of China, and that could spark a world war, because when you're talking about the power to control electronics, to control every little thing that makes the world go round right now, the world doesn't want to have to be at the whims of China. And it just may be that this creates another world war type of scenario. But the Axis powers, you can already see, are lined up, right? China, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Russia. Um, what's the country that's next to
North Korea.
Russia? North Korea, right? It's a domino effect. It's easily seen. You got the
Well,
allies, right? United States, NATO, and NATO's North Atlantic. They're not going to even come over there. They deal with anything that deals with the Atlantic Ocean. But you got possibly India, and I say it's a possible. You got Australia. You got England, France, Germany, right? I mean, it's going to be it's a crazy lineup, and like you said, this is not World War II, because you're comparing apples and oranges militarily speaking. Japan didn't even have close. They didn't have any business in Pearl Harbor. Let's just keep it above, right? They really didn't, right? They tried to make a statement, to hit hard and get out, but that was the worst thing they ever did in their life. They still reeling back from that mistake, right? To this day,
they
they're
should have
just
followed
now
the
getting
I
ability to
Ching.
do that. Yeah.
They should have followed that I Ching reading.
They should have hit when the clouds came kamikaze when the cloud cover came, right?
Right.
That they should have followed through, right? I can't remember the I Ching reading, right? But it nonetheless, right? The I Ching told them how to hit, and the dude didn't follow instructions, and that's why they ended up making a drastic mistake and ended up getting bombed twice, Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So
Well,
you know what I mean? It's just
folks,
interesting. It's a different world scene than it's ever been in the world right now, and so I'd have to go with China as the winner in the long term sense of things, just because if they get Taiwan, the long term win is you got the power to slow the halt of manufacturing down to a standstill. And if you are losing, drones use microchips, right? So it's very interesting. It's a sticky situation. But I tell you this, I will put $1,000 on it. Right, China is going to get Taiwan. There's no doubt in my mind. And we're going to talk about it here and look at the chart in a minute. You're going to see exactly why, because it's amazing how it's lined up. It's almost uncanny the
right,
way these things are situated.
right. And the key thing is that, yeah, I disagree with his last point. Because he made a statement. He think in the long run that the U.S. would make out, and he has to say that. But I like, again, I think we're measuring it differently, right? Because the United States here, the whole thing. If you've been watching us, you've been following up on the other episodes and things like that. Russia and China and that whole kind of crew over there is just trying to put the United States in a position to relinquish their ambition. Right? Because they know they pledged to protect Ukraine. Okay, protect Ukraine. All right, they pledged to protect Taiwan, so then they put them in a position. Okay, protect Taiwan. Right, and then they know what's going on domestically. We have all sorts of problems domestically, right? Rising inflation, all these different things like that. The country has no appetite for an actual war right now.
We don't want
If
to
the
do
United
anything
States
right
went
now.
to war, it would be against the United States population's wishes. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so
And then not only to mention, what did those little sanctions do again?
nothing. You know what? They're not even really talking about Ukraine right now. They're not even
But,
talking about that war.
but I'm
I
just
haven't really
saying,
seen. Yeah,
I'm
right.
waiting to hear this result of the sanctions because seem like they using gasoline and petroleum as weapons, and they're like, we ain't missing them. We're not missing anything. I mean, it's like, okay, you got your McDonald's, you got Burger King. Yeah, okay, right. Really didn't care about that anyway. But gas wise, I mean, they supply, what is it, 40% or 50% of Europe's gas supply. Come on, man. And the winter is coming, folks. Watch and see how the winter goes. Right, winter is coming. So when Russia says, yeah, we're not going, I think they said that they were they shut capacity down to a halt of 20%. That's can you imagine, right? 20% of the flow of oil and gas in comparison to what was, probably triple that previously. That's crazy, right? That's wild. That's a hell of a
Wow.
statement to say.
Yeah.
You have 20% of gas flow and oil in Europe. So we'll just sit and wait it out. We'll be warm. We may not have McDonald's, but
And they're
we'll
more
be able to cook our food.
right, and they're more. I mean, their populations are more. They're used to living
Resilient,
in
right?
yeah. You know,
Yeah.
we're used to living in relative luxury compared to a lot of. I mean, a lot of the other world, especially compared to China and North Korea and Russia and all these places like that. So their population, I mean, they've, quote unquote modernized, but they haven't forgot where they came from.
Not at
So
all.
they're just the standard of living over there is quite different than it is here. Let's just put it that way. you know,
Yeah,
indeed.
yeah. It's a
And
different
whatnot.
ball game. It is. I'm telling you, it's a crazy world right now, folks.
Right.
It's a crazy world.
Right.
It's not. Anything's up for grabs almost in the sense of world politics and geopolitical structures. It is not 1950 anymore. It's not even 1990 anymore. 1990s, right? It was still the Cold War between Russia and the United States. There really ain't no Cold War anymore. Yeah, it's gonna be a Cold War, all right. It's gonna be a Cold War when the winter hits this after November, right?
We're in a Cold War
You're gonna
now.
see what a Cold War really looks like.
I would argue that we're in a Cold War now because it's like everybody's just kind of all right, just waiting, waiting on the. All right, you gonna make the move? Are you gonna make the move? They're all waiting to push the button, so
Who's
to
gonna
speak.
lead?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and that's crazy, man. When they talk about, I'm telling you, when the winter hits, watch you because they haven't got to they got Donetsk. Is it Donetsk that they got this recently? They like right on the doorstep. They haven't got to Kiev in Ukraine, right? But when the trigger hits in China and Taiwan, then I was thinking maybe we could postpone this thing out until 20, because the news kind of like puts out 2026 is kind of like the deadline when China's gonna go to Russia. I mean, China's going to go to Taiwan. No, it's going to be within the next few months, if not within the next few days. I mean, they're knocking at the door, and you don't encircle a country on all sides having 21, I think 21 or 27 airline fighter jets flying over and slipping in and out of the airspace. And think about it. It's like you got these rockets ready, and one comes in your airspace, and it's like, do we shoot or not? Right. So, like you said, just oh, I'm sorry, wrong, my bad. We shot the missile. We meant to shoot it over you, but it did hit in the middle. So, what you gonna do?
And for folks, for you who haven't been keeping up with it, Nancy Pelosi, made a trip to Taiwan, that's kind of triggered this even more because of the activity that China's been out there, doing, relative, to Taiwan, circling them and such. That so there a lot of people were concerned that Nancy Pelosi, their plane would get shot down, and that's not how it's going to happen, right? But what that trip is just doing, it's just triggering China to just move more aggressively on Taiwan, and that's going to be the trigger, and it's like, again, just like with Russia, it's going to put the U.S. in a position. All right, do you really want the smoke? Right? Do you really want the smoke?
Problems.
Right, because I think the United States Army is equipped to beat China and all of those powers, but what the cost of it? The cost of it is what has to be weighed.
Win?
Right.
Yeah.
And what do you
win
lose?
in the long run?
What do you lose? Right. You already got problems domestically. What do you think a war with all of these other powers are going to do?
And I mean, they're talking about Iran, and Iran does have nuclear capability. It's it's confirmed in so many ways. Iran has nuclear capabilities.
And North Korea.
North Korea. We know North Korea's got it, right? They got it, and they have been launching ICBMs, right, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they can't do what they need to do, but Iran, right? This is the world. This is geopolitics. Iran has it, right? They're like pissed because Iran is like, yeah, we don't have it. We're going to use it for friendly purposes, except. Right. There's always an exception to the rule. Remember that in politics, there's a statement and there's an except, right? An except if Israel, right, acts on behalf of the United States in defending anything against Russia or what have you. That's the exception, and I guarantee, if this goes down the way, unfortunately, it may go down, right? You're gonna see a whole different atmosphere in that part of the world. When I'm talking about the rhetoric, right, that's gonna come out of these other smaller nations that rally around Iran, right? They're gonna say, "Yup, now what? We'll come over there and do something, and if you do something back to us, right, Big Brother, which is Iran, they got our back," right? Syria, you haven't heard much about Syria, have you? Right?
The media is interesting. I've been talking about it on the other podcast. I mean, that's another way that warfare is being carried out, through media, right? I mean, media, they really do. They move. It's not the public informing the media. The media is informing the public. Period.
Right.
Right. They're really, I mean, we know this, we talk about it, but I don't know, just recently, it's so overt to me that, like, we were all in Russia craze. All right. Russia, all in Ukraine craze.
No, wait. We were in COVID craze.
COVID craze.
Right.
Numbers are still going up. Yeah. It's still going up. They just don't want to cover it anymore. Yeah. We just got over COVID over here. My whole family here caught COVID, recently. People are still catching it.
Right.
Numbers are going up.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they just
by the way, that's gone. That doesn't exist anymore. Oh yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. And see, people have been talking about, well, Ra, you said COVID was going to go away till 2023. It hasn't gone away. It hasn't.
No,
I know quite a few people that have contracted COVID.
Right.
They just don't report it. That's all.
Yep.
Now you like you
So
said, my man said we're Ukraine. Ukraine was a big. Everything you turned on was Ukraine, 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 Ukraine. Where's that?
they're losing. So we don't want to talk about that right now. Right?
Right.
We
Right.
want to talk about that right now. So they're trying to they're
Right.
distracting you, you know?
Mm-hmm. We got one man.
Yeah. Come on.
We got one man, y'all.
What, 30
No
years later?
casualties.
30 years later?
Yeah.
30 years
30
later?
years later.
Come on.
Right.
Let's look at some of these charts. These cats.
One thing I did want to mention though, interestingly enough, and I want y'all to pay close attention. Watch Zimbabwe. Watch. Because Zimbabwe, you heard what Zimbabwe did, right?
No, I didn't. What happened in Zimbabwe?
Their currency is gold now.
Oh, really?
Their
I need to
gold
look
backed
into
currency.
that.
Yes.
There's so much stuff going on.
Yeah.
I gotta let me.
Gold back, baby, like your boy Gaddafi. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it just happened last week. And so they're having a big deal of it. It's a big deal. And guess what? Remember, this is contagious, right? Rahu is in Aries. So the contagion factor spreads fast. Watch what happens to other countries in Africa. They're going to catch on. And they're going to have a problem. If Zimbabwe is not careful, right, you'll start to see things pop up in their backyard where they have to be dealt with or handled. Because once you start doing that as a domino effect, and the what we call the not fiat currency, but fractional reserve lending has a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is an economic war too, y'all. There's wars on every front. Rahu and Aries is going to war, y'all. It is
Cyber
wars
war.
on every front. Yeah.
Cyber warfare.
Cyber warfare, economic warfare, media warfare. You name it, wars are at hand. So, don't be surprised when you wake up and they say, "Yep, we have invaded Taiwan," and America has to. You'll see little old Biden pull his thing down, and he might have to make a decision or two, right? But let's take a look to see what we got here in the heavenly report of this United States of America. We got Mars in the 5th house, right? Mars in the 5th, Rahu's in the 5th, Saturn is in the 2nd. Yeah.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Keeps disconnecting me. Give me 1 second. All right.
Yeah. Saturn is definitely doing his retrograde here in the 2nd house, which, I did a video on the recession that we're dealing with. So makes perfect sense in the 2nd house to deal with a recession, as far as economics are concerned. But Rahu and Ketu are in the 5th house. 5th house I always look at as the 3rd from the 3rd, right? The 3rd from the 3rd is the 5th, which is a house that deals in, intelligence, but also making decisions. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's decision making.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, nothing is the U.S. is being provoked, not their hand is not I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it, but it's more of a provocation versus a mandate. Right. You attack the UK, that's a mandate. They have to.
There's no question, right?
Right.
This
You
one
know.
is like, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? Yeah, like you said, they're not gonna hit Nancy Pelosi, and she's old anyway. They know she a couple months, couple years, she'd be dust anyway. But they're not gonna hit that plane out the sky. But what they are gonna do, and they did have 27 planes over their airspace. I know that for sure.
Right.
Right, they had 27 airplanes in the sky, surrounded the island. Right, the U.S. sent, I think, one aircraft carrier, or one aircraft carrier over there to try to, make a presence and say, hey, you better not. But they're gonna push the envelope. They're gonna taunt. They're gonna tease. Right, they're gonna titillate the potential, and then Taiwan can make a mistake. Right, they can make a mistake, and then that mistake will be considered full on attack of, and I mean, you got to consider, folks, darn well they know what they're doing. You don't have no business over there if you're not trying to provoke war. What would you do that for? You're doing it for them to create to enact on a hair trigger, to make a mistake, and then you have all rights to retaliate and say, see what I told you, right?
Right.
This is what happens when you play with, what did he say, play with what?
Fire.
Play with fire, right? So this is what, like my man saying here, he's right. Like I said, eyes to the side, ear to the street, right? He's right on the money that it's going to something's they're provoking, they're teasing, they're like, and isn't that kind of what Rahu does? It's like smoke and mirrors. Isn't that what's happening, right?
Exactly. Yep. Smoke and mirrors. Yep.
Yeah, smoke and mirrors. Like, haha, we're here, but we're not here. But we're here, but we're not here. But we really are here. But we're over there. Oh, look over there, right? And by the time you're doing all of that, you're kind of confused. What Rahu does makes what? Creates confusion,
Right.
right? And then next thing you know, Taiwan says, and I don't think they'll be. I hope they're not dumb enough. Well, I say dumb enough, but I hope they're not bold enough, right, to
Yeah.
drop something off and then it just be accidental, because then it's almost like saying, well, you did provoke the war. But right now they could say we really didn't provoke the war. We just prepared to say as if, or what if, the old what if scenario. War games is what they call it. Well, they're gonna drop the games, right? I'm telling you this, right? I got a good, just based on what I'm seeing in the heavens, and not just, of course, America's chart is one thing, right? But you got to consider, and here, let's just look at a bit of timing on this. You got Mars in the fifth house, is going to enter the sixth house as of August the 10th. Mars is going to be in the sixth house until November. No, is it October? October 15th. October 15th, Mars is going to move into Gemini. Mars is on the cusp of Gemini and Taurus at 0 degrees, correct?
Correct.
Now, when you get a marginalization of something like this, guess what Mars is going to do between now and March? Retrograde.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to go over that point, isn't it? It's going to go
Yep.
over that point, go back over that point, and then what? Go back over that point again. Isn't that the process of being titillated? Right? Isn't that the process of being poked and prodded? So it may not happen. Like I said, I mean, I just really surmise that something between now and then will push it into action, but America won't make the initial, just all out response. They're gonna have to go through and get some okays and get some things right. And by the time Mars is fully in the seventh house, which will be as of March of next year, right? February, March is of next year.
March. Let's see. Yeah, March 12th.
Right?
That's the 12th of March that I'm showing right now.
Right. You see what I'm saying? How it's going to play out. This is America, of course. Doesn't mean that Taiwan will have already been invaded, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
It just means Mars will have come to a full back and forth motion to kind of provoke the bull, to prod the bull. You know, when they have the red, the red cape and the bull, and like, right,
Yeah.
that's what they're doing. And then finally, right, they're gonna drop the cake. It's gonna be an anvil behind the red cape, right? Where, oh, wait a minute, they ain't playing, right? We gotta go to war here. So by the time Mars is making its full return, and then Mars returns happens every 2 years, right? That's when I would see that we would have to make a decision on how we're gonna handle this situation, and to whether or not we're gonna go all in because Mars is marginalized. It's kind of a what if scenario, you know, in the sense of, do we really want these problems, or is it going to be the return on our investment, or do we have to do it because we said we were going to do it, that kind of thing. That's what Mars is going to do when it does this retrograde dance over the sixth and the seventh house. But when it's finally in the seventh, America's going to have to make a decision. And watch what happens, folks, when we look at this from the other countries' charts, because we're going to see, right, China, right. Look at where China is in the grand scheme of things. It's interesting, right? China has Rahu over the fourth house.
Right.
That's land, right? That's homeland. They're inflated, right? They're inflated, right? Rahu makes your ego get big. It makes your head get big. Makes things swell up. It makes you, right, become insatiable, right? Become inconsiderate when it comes to taking things that you think are yours. Rahu is the encroaching army, folks. In astrology, in Vedic astrology, in Indian astrology, Rahu is the invading army, people.
Right.
Ketu is the army that's already established the flag. That's why the symbol of Ketu, one of them, is a flag. You run it up the flagpole, you say, "We are here, we conquered." So they're not worried about the world scene. Look, K2's in the 7th, in the 10th house. They're not worried about the world scene and what the world worries about. They want that land back.
Right.
And Mars in the fourth house, it's just like, it's just, if you really are watching this, the amazing part of all of this is that it's happening right before your very eyes. Mars is in the fourth house, and they're actually thinking about just going on. I'm sure the talk is there in the higher ups. Do we do it now or wait?
Right. If they're
It's not
using
like
the
it's not being right.
I believe they're using the Chimendunjia and
right.
Feng Shui and Bazi and the whole nine. They know when to go.
Right. So when Mars moves out of there to move in the fifth house, but guess what? When March comes, where will Mars be? In their what?
6.
Was it sixth house?
Mm-hmm.
War.
Mm-hmm.
Enemies. It'll be simultaneously in the seventh house, conjuncting 4 planets, a stellium. I have to move across all 4 planets, including Mars, as a natal
Right.
return. You can see this happening, and folks, and I'm sorry, y'all, got to say it. Tropical can't do this, right? Just can't do it. Right? We even talked about nakshatras, right? And here's what I really capitulate, y'all. This is what I really do think. If I really gauge it right, I will believe it to be the second week in August when they invade. I'm gonna tell you why. Right? Has anyone ever heard of algol? Think about algol, y'all. If you know what algol is, you'll know what I'm saying. Algol is a star. There's those nakshatras, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they are pinned to the zodiac. Algol will be hit by Mars as of the 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th of August. Algol is the Gorgon's head. the head of Medusa is Algol, right? And when that planet hits that star, it can wreak havoc worldwide. It creates fighting the Gorgon, right? You know, Perseus, when he goes to cut the head of the Gorgon, right? And holds the Gorgon's head, right? And has the power of a Titan. Is Taiwan a Titan? Right.
We'll see.
Is Taiwan a Titan? Right. Check it out. Right. Is Taiwan a Titan? Right. Is that the Gorgon's head that's held? Right. Right. I mean, it's kind of, you know how you can see how, you know, Taiwan's this little itty bitty island. You know, head is an itty bitty part of the body.
Right.
The Gorgon's head got all these snakes, and it has the power to what? Turn man into stone.
Stone, yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have microchips, right, your companies turn into what?
To stone. Our whole world. I mean, everything we're doing right now is possible because of the microchip. Right. Gee, I mean, every single thing. This whole production right now, microchips.
Right. Right. The Gorgon's head, right? I'm just saying, right? It's a strong possibility. Not only is it a strong possibility, it's a high probability. Because all these saber rattling, China's not going to just sit back down from this. They got to keep their word. It can't look like we just did all that talking and now, what's the fire that you going to taste? Well, the fire is going to be that Gorgon's head is coming home to Perseus. Right. And Mars deals with cutting and blades. See, any planet can travel over Algol. Right. When Venus travels over Algol, you lose your head over Venusian type things, which is, pleasure, could be addictions, could be food, could be money. Venus is money. So you can find that money can, transactions and things like that can go awry. You got Saturn transiting over it. That's a long transit anyway. We're talking about, a few weeks to, almost some months. That transit is, losing your head over, right? Structures, governmental things falling, right? Governments losing their heads of state, dissension in between economic and governmental structures. So, you got to look at the planet and what's going over the Gorgon's head, right? Jupiter, right? Exposing, things that are going on behind the scenes or churches. It can also be economics, right? So what planet is going over the Gorgon's head?
Mars.
And is Mars not a blade?
Absolutely.
So I'm just saying, right? The sun goes over it every year.
Right.
That's no big ordeal. The moon goes over every 30 days. But these other planets, and Mars is a slow moving planet, you got to consider what this means at the time when Rahu, the ruler of Mars, Rahu is in the sign that is ruled by Mars. So Mars contains the energy of Rahu as it moves over the Gorgon's head. Henceforth, it can make decisions that are instantaneous. So I'm just saying, August 15th to the 18th, don't be surprised if something transpires and they finally go for the gusto and we see a transaction happen. And again, like I said, Mars will be in the 6th house of Taurus for America. It will be in the 5th house for China.
Right? And the 11th for Taiwan.
And the 11th for Taiwan.
Now,
but take a look at the 11th house, though. Where is Mars placed natally?
It's in the 3rd.
Right. So if it's in the 3rd and that's a trinal aspect, but it's squaring Saturn at the same time, that's not a good picture, y'all. Right? Mars trining Saturn and squaring Mars squaring Saturn and trining Mars means they're gonna have to fight. They may have to fight. It's in the 11th house of groups, social organizations, and right. It's gonna things and think about it. Mars is the 10th Lord in the 11th, fourth, fifth Lord in the 11th. The 10th Lord is, it's the government. It's the heads of government. They're gonna have to make decisions, hard decisions, squaring Saturn, and they will have the support militarily to some degree, but they can't overcome the overwhelming force of China's military force. So you can see it. And Rahu is in the what? Look where Rahu is, y'all. It's in the 10th house of government. The government is confused right now. Do you see that little old lady over there? She's so happy. Nancy Pelosi's over there. Oh, thank you. Because we know they're coming for us.
But do you think, I mean, overall, especially just looking at this, right, they're going to have to fight. But overall, I mean, Taiwan might not like it, but they're not going to do anything to Taiwan because they need Taiwan. They're not trying to.
No,
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. They're not going to annihilate or do anything damaging to Taiwan.
They're not going to do what Russia did to Ukraine. They're not going to
bomb, and it's not even Ukraine is one of the largest countries
it's a big country.
Europe. So
right.
Kiev is way inside Ukraine. Taiwan's capital is right there. Like you just roll over, right there. You're at the capital. It's not like they got to do a whole lot to get the capital, right? This is an island, not a country, right? Ukraine is a country, right?
Right.
Ukraine got layers, right? And they're busting them layers down. But Taiwan is just, oh, hey, go across the street, up the street, and around the corner, and you at the capital, right? It's not going to be much. It won't be a bombardment. It won't be missiles hitting the buildings and people screaming. Nothing like that. No. It'll be on the ground, boots on the ground, right? Rolling in. There might be some shots fired and some exchanges. And then once they see China is fully in full swing, it's just a matter of surrender, right? And it's a done deal. But then that's the beginning, right? Then the other stuff comes out when the United States and all these other powers that be have to now make a decision as to whether or not what they're going to do. And it's not going to really be much of, because once you're in there, you're in there. It ain't like you can get China out of there.
Right.
So it's going to be an interesting next 6 months, people.
For sure.
Yeah,
indeed.
Definitely. And K2, not even talk, K2's in the 4th house. So just like Rahu, isn't it just as, it's crazy. Pull up Ukraine real quick, King, just to show the comparison between these things, right? Ukraine is Capricorn, and then pull up China. Capricorn, right? So both of them have Rahu in the what?
In the 4th house.
4th house. Isn't that interesting? Then look at Ukraine. I'm sorry, not Ukraine. Taiwan and
Russia.
Right, Russia. So if you look at what I was trying to show is Russia is Cancer, right? Ukraine is Capricorn. They're opposites on each side.
Right.
But because they're in opposition, that creates that type of what? That war positioning, right?
And they're both married.
So, right. And they're both used to be part of one another. Isn't that that's wild, man? Right.
Yep. So
extensions of one another, right?
Right. So just to show your point again, so everybody's clear, this is Russia. Russia's Cancer ascendant here. You see that 4 there? That's Cancer, right? And then here's Ukraine. Okay. Capricorn, that's the 10 right there. That's Ukraine. And then we go to China. China is Capricorn, right? That 10 right there. And then Taiwan is Cancer. Well, I don't know what just
They're both here. In oppositions to one another.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Sorry. Cancer. Here's Taiwan. That's a trip.
Come on. That shows you.
Random.
You can't get any better than that.
Come on.
They
Come
both
on.
stand in direct opposition to each other. Ukraine stands in opposition for what Russia is, and Taiwan stands in opposition. Both of them are democratic, are they not?
They are.
Right? And the other ones are. People say Russia's not. It really is, right? It's communist to a degree, right? You can't vote
Yeah.
Putin out,
No,
right?
it's
And you can't vote Jinping out either, right? So you see what I'm saying? The way they're situated is almost apples and apples and oranges, right? They're very much comparable to the way things are situated. So I'm telling you, like, I would really surmise that if they're not invading, they're gonna poke and prod the bear so much next week when on the 15th, 16th, it's gonna be like, look, there might as well be at war. Right? It's like you're gonna provoke a response in some way so that you can go to war.
right. Lost your audio for a second.
My bad. They're gonna poke the bear.
Yeah.
Right. 14, 15, 16, when alcohol is it 15th? Or 14th, 15th, and 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th. Yeah. That week, not this week coming up, but the week following, right? That's when they're gonna poke the bear. Right? They're gonna see if they can get that Gorgon's head. And so it's a wrap, right? You're gonna look at a completely different world structure. Life is going to change, and I didn't even throw Uranus in there. I didn't, right? I didn't even throw Uranus in there.
Yeah.
Let alone Mars will be in opposition to Pluto in May of next year. That is something on the world scene to consider. That is big, big, big trouble in Little China, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Big.
I mean, and Mars, and that's it. I mean, Mars just slows down. Not like it just really. Yeah, I realize the rest of the remainder of the years is right here between Taurus and Gemini all the way until
Yeah.
March.
Yeah. Yeah. And then as soon as it leaves Gemini, it's in Cancer. And guess
Right.
what? When Mars hits Cancer, y'all, see, Capricorn can control Mars. Cancer lets the flood waters go. It let the floodgates open. And guess what? In China's chart, where is Mars?
Mars is in Cancer.
So just like I said, right? These things are lining up. They're lining up. And, get yourselves prepared to see a different world. I wouldn't say there'd be a conventional war, but there will be a war. I think the war, if anything, let me tell you, I think the war will be played out at sea and in
I
the
think.
air, right?
I think it's gonna be played out over.
I don't think China will launch a military invasion of America. I don't think they're ready for that.
No one.
Yet.
I don't. No one is ready for that. That I don't see. To a certain degree, there's a certain level of security that the United States have just
It does. Oh, by
geographically.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just as far as the systems, how's what I mean? That, we're talking about cyber warfare. We're talking about just
Right.
economic warfare.
Mars in what sign is coming up?
Mars in Taurus.
Yeah. But what's after Taurus?
Gemini. Yeah, Mars and Gemini. Yeah.
Cyber what?
Yeah, cyber warfare. Yep. And it's Yep.
That's where we'll see the big. I mean, you'll even know, right? Something you'll know. YouTube will be gone, right? Something will be hammered, deliberately speaking, right? Because YouTube is a big front for America, and I mean, people don't want. This is the news channel. You watching a news channel? I mean, WeOn is a news channel, folks. This is via YouTube. MSNBC, YouTube. Everything is YouTube, so it don't take much to knock YouTube off,
Well,
right?
even
And it
beyond,
cut their own heads. China's not gonna hurt from being without YouTube. You can't see nothing on YouTube there anyway.
well, I would that's media can be attacked absolutely. But we're talking about power grids,
True.
water treatment plants, those systems, different things, because they've already been testing it out. The United States hacked Iran's nuclear facility. I forget what the name of the virus that they sent over there, but they hacked it.
Crazy, man. Crazy. Yeah, so it's gonna be something to see, but I guarantee you, folks, we're gonna see more than we bargained for between now and when these planets finally settle down, and that won't be until we got to get Rahu out of Aries anyway, right?
Right.
To really see the fuel and the fire separated. So it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out until October of 2023. But Mars will calm down once he leaves Cancer. Gets into Leo. He'll be a little bit more settled. But Leo is governments, But I think maybe they might sit down at the table and talk at that point and come to an understanding. But in between now and then, expect things to pop. Yeah.
And indeed. So as usual, I want to remind you all, make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you can know when we are dropping new content. And again, this has been episode 23 of season 5. We're getting real close to the end of the season, so definitely stay tuned for that. Rod, you got anything you got to say to the people before we get out?
Just stay tuned. Like my man said, subscribe to the other channels because a lot of great content is on there, and you can definitely have kind of a one-stop shop for all the things that you may want to know about as far as current events and social outlets and things like that. So definitely subscribe to the other channels. It's not just Cosmic Convos. We got all kind of goodies for you. So definitely do that and share them. Share with your family, share with your friends, put it on your Facebook, put it on your IG, and let people kind of enjoy what you enjoy as well.
Absolutely. And with that being said, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be back with another great episode. All right? And we are out. Peace.
Peace.